haven't, there is there is food and refreshments over in this corner. And if you don't have your name tag, we have those printed out for you. Let's go ahead and get started with our final meeting of this year. Let's go ahead and do introductions. Rosie, do you want to start down there and we'll just go down the line and then I'll move it to the online folks?
Rosie Hernandez with Wasatch Front Regional Council.
Nikki Navia with Wasatch Front Regional Council.
Mike Christensen with the Salt Lake City Planning Commission and Utah Rail Passengers Association.
Kendall Willardson with Mountain Land Association of Governments.
Alex Bain with UTA Planning.
Molly Enos, City of Mill Creek and private citizen.
Lauren Victor, Transportation Planner at the Wasatch Front Regional Council.
Zuri Garcia, citizen of Davis County.
Utah House, Tara Rollins, Utah Housing Coalition.
Sarah Cody, private citizen. I'm actually in Cottonwood Heights.
Jeremy Shinoda, Ogden Planning Commission.
Megan Waters, UTA Community Engagement.
Ben Withrich with the Wasatch Front Regional Council.
I'm Sarah Hodson with the Department of Health and Human Services.
Angelo Papastamas, UDOT Planning.
Okay, and we'll go to online. Andrea.
Andrea Hernandez, Ogden citizen.
Jordan. Okay. Leah.
Leah Baez with United Way of Salt Lake and Promise Partnership Utah.
And Curtis.
Curtis Herring, Utah Transit Riders Union.
Great. Okay. Let's get started. Okay, so here's a quick look at our agenda for this evening. So we're going to have a little refresher on the committee objectives that you all participated in helping shape at our first meeting. Then we'll have some time for a committee member share, and then we'll have a presentation on the Healthy Places Index. And then we'll have a discussion on the future of the advisory committee and kind of what's next, looking ahead at the next year. And then we'll have an open discussion and announcements, and then we'll be done. All right, so looking at the shared committee objectives, yeah, just as a reminder, we came up with 5 of these at the beginning of this process. And so the first 2 that we have were in the planning realm. So I'll just read these out. I know it's a little small text. So the first one that we came up with was transportation partners will inform the advisory committee on Wasatch Choice Vision plans and programs and create a space for learning about transportation and land use efforts. So looking at a space for learning will be created through our meetings, and then tools and resources will be shared on an ongoing basis. So we did this in the last year by sharing our regional transportation plans with WFRC and MEG. And then kind of we have this ongoing resources page that we will continue to add to that you'll have access to. And the second one was the advisory committee will advise transportation partners on planning efforts relevant to the needs and lived experiences of diverse communities throughout the Wasatch Front region. So we held special meeting sessions for studies for our committee members to learn about and provide feedback in their perspectives. And then so for the outreach and engagement, the transportation partners will regularly share plans, studies, and programs along with supportive materials and resources with the advisory committee to share with communities. And so we've shared information on the Wasatch Choice Vision, the regional transportation plans, UTA's long range transit plan, and as well as the special sessions that we mentioned. Then the fourth one is the advisory committee will advise transportation partners on new avenues for outreach and public engagement for the Wasatch Choice Vision and related transportation and land use efforts, and will increase awareness and spread the word with members of their communities. So we heard feedback from you all on how to enhance our public engagement processes, and we'll look for ways to implement that feedback in the coming years. And then finally, the advisory committee will communicate issues and ideas related to transportation and land use to the transportation partners. The transportation partners will work with the advisory committee to consider issues identified through planning efforts. Again, we got at that with our special sessions, the zero fare study and our SEDS special session, and we'll look to continue to do that. And then we're also kind of restarting the cycle of our regional transportation plans and things like that. So we'll be able to kind of plug you in earlier on that process. Fortunately, in the last year, it was at the very end of that planning cycle. So we'll have more opportunities in the future. So that was just kind of a refresher of the objectives that we had, and these will all be ongoing as we continue this committee. Yeah, we use Mike.
This is Terry. Just push it once. Oh, there we go. I'm wondering, was there any impact on community input? Was there anything changed in the plans after input?
Specifically for our regional transportation plan, what we heard during our public comment period, which was our kind of most recent public comment period from when this committee had started, the only things that really changed that we heard were some minor changes on the roadway and on the active transportation side. I don't know, Nikki, if there was anything that you had heard from community members. I can say on the transit side, I didn't receive any comments to change any of the transit projects. But again, I think that's also just kind of the lateness of when this committee had started, and we had to spend so much of the first few meetings kind of laying that groundwork of what we do and how to kind of work together and creating that back and forth relationship. So I'm very much looking forward to the next RTP cycle and being able to plug in folks earlier and also implement different avenues for outreach earlier on in the process. Any other questions or discussion?
Oh, I was just gonna add, I dropped the Community Advisory Committee resource document in the chat, but also we can, continually to share this resource document with you. It has all the meeting resources, anything that we've come up with or presented in all the meetings, as well as like links to ongoing studies. And this is an opportunity or space for us to be able to share different efforts that are happening. So if you want to share anything, you're welcome to provide that for the group and vice versa.
Great. And then if you could pull up the committee member share, and we'll move on from there. And Sarah, I believe you're helping us out with that. Do you want to present up there from your seat? Totally up to you. Either or, so your comfort levels. Okay, I'm gonna grab you the clicker really quick.
I will first share that microphones stress me out. So maybe back here makes most sense because then I'm not up there and with a microphone. Thank you. Okay, so here we go. We are going to just do a quick about me. I like to start with an agenda, if that's cool. About me, then we're going to go over history. I always share, just so you know, that I am a private citizen. I do work at the University of Utah in the Black Cultural Center. And so I did get to ask the university for permission today to share about the university and the Black Cultural Center, and they said yes. So for the next few minutes, I am going to be representing the university and the Black Cultural Center, and then we'll go back to private citizen. So we'll go over a brief history of what Black Cultural Centers are and their history. And then I'm going to introduce my center, what we've been doing, highlight some numbers, and then why it matters within this context. And then, like I said, then I'll go back to private citizen, but why it matters and why I'm here within those numbers and context. So there we go. Let me see. Oh, look. Okay. So, hey, I am Sarah. I use the she, her series pronouns. I'm a dog mom. These are some just information that you don't care to know, but I like to share it. So dog mom, I'm a summer camp director. I'm actually leaving here, going to pack, and then I'm leaving for summer camp for a week and a half. I work with transracial families of adoption. I'm a friend, I'm a mentor. I mentor families in homeless services. I mentor BSU, Black Student Union students. I also do some mentorship with our women in higher education. And then I'm just a general fan of ice cream. I love ice cream. I have probably 56 to 80 pictures of me just looking just like that with an ice cream cone. I just love ice cream. So that's what you don't care to know about me. I'm also the coordinator at our Black Cultural Center. So there's some other context. I do want to ask you, how many of you have heard of a Black Cultural Center? Okay, that's good numbers in a room. I have not actually seen that very often in a room. Usually it's like 1 or 2 in a room, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's what I was kind of expecting. But with just some brief history of Black cultural centers just in our nation. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act came across like our nation, which prohibited racial segregation in schools. That's important because first we had segregation, now we are integrating schools. That didn't happen immediately after 1964, right? It slowly happened, but then we found in 1968 that our students of color then didn't necessarily feel like they belonged on campuses. They were there on campus, but then they were like, okay, but where am I supposed to be? We found in the context of Black students, however, that then they started forming their Black student unions. And then this magic thing happened in New Brunswick, New Jersey at Rutgers University, where they created this Black cultural center. And so it was essentially an HBCU on this predominantly white campus. And that was like their space to do what they needed to do within like a Black space on a white campus. And so that began to like grow and flourish and happen in other spaces. We now have about 90 Black cultural centers across like the nation, one of which is on our campus here at the U. We were the first university in Utah to have a Black cultural center. Weber is hopefully going to be getting one in the next 3 years. So that's also really exciting. But so in 2019, we got one, and it was after 20 years of protests, requests, and some demands. They're really cool demands to read. Come ask for them. We'll show them to you. They're really cool. That was from students, faculty, staff, and community members. Then we, oh yeah, I'm like, don't read the comments there. Don't focus. Okay. Yes. So that leads us to today, where I'm actually sitting, I'm not standing, where we have 3 of our flagship programs. Can you advance me? My button's not working.
We have been having some issues. We've lost because of the storm and stuff, we lost power for a little while. So I think things have kind of reset a little weirdly.
Oh,
But
there we go.
There we go. Okay.
Thank you. There we go. Okay, so here's our three programs. My program is Operation Success. Operation Success is a student leadership program where I have 6 fellows. They get to look at a Black disparity in our community, and then they create a program or a project that focuses on those Black disparities and helping alleviate those. We also have the Male Success Initiative that works with our students, our male students who identify as male and also a student of color or male identifying students from rural areas, either or. And we help them to find retention on college campus. And then we also have Generation Next, which is building Black professionals of tomorrow in professional spaces. And so we do that through business tours. We do that through networking spaces. All of these are important because it happens not on, this is our cute little center. It's a cute little house up at the top of our university. It doesn't necessarily happen at our center. It actually happens throughout the community. And it doesn't always necessarily happen with our students at our campus. It happens with our students that are starting at the university or at Utah State University all the way through BYU. So we're actually interacting and accessing students all through this Wasatch Front and beyond. as well as our students on campus. Okay, quick look at our numbers. So our students we're interacting with is actually around 551 students. We have 90 students who are grad students on our campus. We don't actually have 551 students who identify as Black on our campus who are actually reporting their identifications. So this actually does show like this is students beyond just our reach on our campus, right? This is students who are beyond University of Utah. Also, our students are commuter students. They're not living on our campus. We also have faculty. So we serve students, faculty, staff, and the greater community. So we have 121 faculty who identify as Black. We cannot collect numbers on staff. It's just a campus rule. So I don't have those numbers for staff, but we do exist. I am a staff member at the University of Utah, and I am not a statistic that is up here. And then also I wanted to just highlight the community organizations. We work with at least 33 community organizations. And again, those are organizations that are not campus organizations. So that's going out beyond campus. That's, you know, accessing our roadways, that's accessing public transportation, that's using our bikes, that's however we are using transportation to get there. Last, just highlight, Black is not a monolith. These are some of the identities that we are working with regularly. I myself, I identify as a Black transplant. I don't actually like transplant. If you ask me, I'd be like, hi, I'm new here. But then if you ask me how long I've been here, I'll say since 2017. Utah is very new to me, so there you go. But here's some of the identities we're working with. This is definitely not all. This is just all that would fit on the slide. So there you go. There's very, very quick why. Again, we are very much a commuter university. We have a lot of students living on campus, but for our students who identify as Black, they actually are not living on campus. They're commuting up to campus, they're commuting to our programming. And then we also have a lot of students who are not going to the U, who are commuting to the U to use and access our programming. We have our faculty and our staff and our community members who are accessing our programming through through transportation. And yeah. Here's my contact information. That was a lot. That was really quick. We would love to partner, connect, network with you. And that is all.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. That was really, really great and insightful. And yeah, that was awesome. Nice work. So now moving on, if you could advance, Nikki, we'll be moving to the Healthy Places Index presentation, and I will be right up with the clicker.
Okay. Well, I'm Sarah Hodson with the Department of Health and Human Services, and I'm really glad to have time here with Angelo tonight to present our Healthy Places Index. And we're just going to give you kind of a brief overview of what it is and why it was developed. And then I think we'll have some time for questions, and depending on time, we could pull up the map and work through it, but we're not planning to train you on the tool today, just give you an overview of the tool. So do I need to point at you, Nikki? Okay. So the Utah Healthy Places Index is a tool that we created at the Utah Department of Health and Human Services in partnership with the Public Health Alliance of Southern California. And it's modeled after the California Healthy Places Index. So it's a trademark tool of the California Healthy Places Index. And then we created a Utah version of it. And this is funded through a Centers for Disease Control Overdose Data to Action grant. And the reason why we were interested in creating the Healthy Places Index is we were looking at some health data and health disparities. We were interested in seeing some of the reasons why we see a lot of disparities in our state. Here's just one example. This is looking at life expectancy. So all of Utah on the left, and then these two neighboring communities in Salt Lake, census tract area, we've labeled downtown Salt Lake, and then the East Bench. where you can see a life expectancy difference that's pretty significant in two neighboring communities. So we understand that the communities where people live, work, and play, I think you've probably heard that expression before, impacts their health and health outcomes. And we wanted to have a data tool that helped us to understand that, helped us to understand what's happening within our own communities, and then also provide some solutions. So the Healthy Places Index is both a data mapping tool and it has a policy guide associated with it. So it's a really great tool to use to understand our communities, but then also to know what can we do to make some improvements. So in public health, which is where I work, is in public health, we work to see that all Utahns have fair and equitable opportunities to live safe and healthy lives. And we really recently have moved upstream, meaning we're looking more and more at what are the reasons why people's health outcomes vary and what are the things that impact health outcomes. So these are things like education levels, housing, fresh fruits and vegetables, job opportunities, places that they can safely walk and bike, access to medical care, social connectedness. Do people feel connected and feel a sense of community where they live? So these are all things that are important to us in public health as we think about public health outcomes, but we also recognize that obviously this goes way beyond the scope of the state's public health agency. And so we really need for all of us to be working together to be able to have an impact on these outcomes. So we did a little bit of research. This is probably like 2 years ago at this point, and I think Angelo was there from kind of day one when we started looking at some different mapping tools. Obviously, there's a million mapping tools available for lots of different things, and there's different mapping tools available for health data as well. But we really liked the Healthy Places Index that California developed for really these 4 reasons. One is the granularity of the data, so we can look at data at a census tract level. I always feel like I have to caveat that with transportation audiences where you're used to looking at like maybe a intersection level. That's not what we do in health. Like we love county level data. So for us, a census tract feels very granular. So it's just a slightly different perspective maybe. It's a validated index. So all of the measures within the index score are positively associated with life expectancy at birth in Utah. So our measures are, as I said, modeled after the California Healthy Places Index, but vary slightly because the tool is validated here, not with their data. It's validated with our data. It contains policy solutions. So each of the indicators in the index itself has a policy guide. So if you were to look at bike lane access, for example, one of the indicators, and in your community there was a low level of bike lane access, you can pull up the bike lane access policy guide and see what are some evidence-based ways that we can improve bike lane access within our community. So it's a really helpful tool in that way. And then it's positively framed. So it's called the Healthy Places Index. We use a blue to green color scale. We don't use reds or oranges that have some negative connotations. And we try to frame it as the assets within a community, recognizing that there are some opportunities for change and growth, but really trying to find the places that have some positive aspects as well. Yeah, go ahead.
I found it really interesting that just the East Bench was colored, let's say, and the fact that so much transportation opportunities are really in the other part of where people live in, like 70, I think it was 75 years old or 73, I can't remember which one it was. I found that fascinating. And I also was wondering about environmental. Did you say environmental impact?
Yeah, I'll show you
Okay.
in just a second the indicators that make up the score, because that will help you to see like it's what are the 20 things we're measuring that make up the score. And the map we looked at initially with the purple is not the index. That's health department data that's showing life expectancy. That's not a measure in the index, but that's a great question. And I hope if it's not answered by the end, let me know and we'll come back to it. We worked with a lot of partners and stakeholders in determining some of the indicators included, as well as the language of the policy guide. So Megan reviewed policies early on and Angelo was involved early on. And we had lots of people doing the work to make sure we had a Utah tool when we launched. We started this process over a year ago with indicator meetings. So this is kind of all of 2022, basically, in terms of the development. We had indicator meetings looking at what was included in the map. Then we did policy meetings. It's like throwing me off. It's like reverse, and I made this slide, but it's a reverse, like you look at a clock. What's that called? Anyway, we're going to the left, counterclockwise. And then we did policy meetings last spring, and then we launched in October. So it hasn't been live all that long, really, with beta testing in August. So the index, the HPI is both an index and a platform. And I recognize I have already and will continue to use the two interchangeably. So the HPI score is the index score, and that is a composite measure of these 20 indicators. So they're divided into 8 domains or social determinant of health, however you want to look at that, categories. And then there's 20 indicators that make up the score. They're weighted differently depending on their association with life expectancy. And on our website, we have a technical report that explains the weighting of each indicator if you're interested. But you can see that it's a wide, it's trying to capture a broad picture of the community conditions that we know impact life expectancy and impact health outcomes. And so these are the 20 that make up the score. In addition to those 20 indicators, there's 300 plus additional indicators that are part of a section called decision support. So again, these don't impact the score and the blue to green coloring of the map, but there are other things that people are interested in looking at. So obviously, like in our agency, people are interested in looking at health outcomes. So they might want to see, what is the rate of diagnosed diabetes compared to bike lane access? Or what's the rate of diagnosed diabetes compared to the index composite measure? And this includes in here some additional transportation related indicators, additional housing, additional economics. So this just provides more context for what's happening in those communities outside of the score itself. This is just a screenshot of the tool. So here I just zoomed into this downtown Salt Lake and looking at bike lane access. So you can see on the left, when you go into the map, you can pick an indicator and you would get a comparison for the state, for the county that you're looking in this case, the Utah Small Area, which is a designation of the health department. It tells you what is this measure. So we're looking at total miles of bike lanes and paths. And then below that, there's a nice little paragraph for each of the indicators that explains why this is connected to health. As we've been developing the tool and talking about the tool since it's been launched, we get a lot of questions about, like, why does the Department of Health and Human Services care about something like housing access or economic access or bike lane access? These are things that maybe feel a little bit outside of our public health role, but they are really important to building the health of a community and to people's health outcomes. So that connection to health is some text and examples of why that's important. And then you can see on the right in the key, it tells you what indicator are we looking at, and then the blue to green scale, blue indicating less healthy and green more healthy as defined by the index score for that particular community. And it's a percentile ranking. So there's 25% in each of those categories. And then, as I said, there's a policy guide. So there's a transportation policy guide that includes 2 texts, 2 sections, one on automobile access and one on bike lane access. And we also have a supplemental guide on transit access as part of the tool as well. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and then let Angelo talk about more of the connection to transportation, and then we can answer more questions after that.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt the Sarah presentations with an Angelo presentation, if that's okay. And so anyway, thanks, Sarah. You know, we got involved with UDOT because really we formed this U Vision thing and started talking about quality of life. And I had been working with Sarah when she was at Get Healthy Utah. And, you know, I had a vague understanding of the relationship with health and transportation. And then when UDOT formed this quality of life thing with a lot of partners, they come up with the U Vision. It's really not UDOT, it's really Utah's transportation vision. And you can see good health, mobility, economy, and connected communities are all there. So that's why I really started to get momentum working with health groups on transportation issues. Okay, Sarah showed the indicators, and I just want to get into a little bit more details because I guess I'm an engineer in theory, and so a transportation geek, but you can see the percentages that help determine the social determinant of health. And so you can see transportation is 16%. And so it's a big deal. And so if we are not doing our transportation right, we're not really helping the health of the community. And so really pushing UDOT to do that, all of our transportation agencies to do that from, it's a planning tool from long range plan through what we call concept, but we can take it even further than that, but right now it's really a planning tool that we use these things and look at them. I'll give you some examples in a minute how we're doing it. These are things Sarah once asked me a long time ago, said, what are we going to use it for? And I talked with a couple of UDOT people and this is what we're going to use it for, and I'm going to start at the bottom. The real thing that we can do here is identify policy opportunities to improve the overall health of the community through a better transportation network for all users. So UDOT, when I joined UDOT, we were about highways. 15 years ago, we were still about highways, little transit. Nowadays, we're talking about active transportation all years, all the time. And so it's so important if we're going to meet our quality of life goals, our vision, we got to come together and figure out what to do. So this gives you a list of things to do. I wish that I could say that we're making progress on all of those. We're not yet, but we're starting on a few of those, and it's exciting, the progress that we are making. I'm sure all of you have heard about the Utah Trail Network. Okay, it's unbelievable that we have $90 million scheduled to build trail. Okay, 3 years ago we had zero. 30 years ago we had less than zero, negative 100. Okay, people didn't like active transportation. I went to a bike summit last week, and for the most of my career, you'd go to a bike summit and there would be 90% bikers there, and they hated UDOT. And it's changed. And so we're making a difference. And part of that's because we're caring about the health of the community. We're providing transportation choices. So I hope that we make progress on all these soon. Okay, but we're making the effort, I got to tell you. So going back a little bit to what Sarah talked about on bike lane access. This is a specific one in Taylorsville, and for those of you that know that area, that's where UDOT's central office is, and you really have no bike lane access. It's pretty interesting that we have none, and you barely have transit access. You have one bus system, one bus station. And so anyway, when you look at communities like this, you can see the problems that they have. And so all those things on the right, there are possible policies that we can work on, guidelines, best practices that we can do. And so when we put this together, I know Megan Townsend, and I'm not Megan Townsend, Megan from UTA, is it Townsend? No, that's you. Oh, okay, Megan Townsend, okay, from UTA, and myself put a lot of this together. And we just looked at national practice and look what we could do in UDOT. So one of the things we'll continue to do is upgrade this. And so we'll be able to keep adding things. A lot easier than we can update data for the score. Okay, we can add things to support this decision layers. Okay, so I live in Mill Creek, and I live in East Mill Creek, the old East Mill Creek. And so Sarah gave you an indication of life expectancy. We did a walking tour, transit tour one day, and we started at West Mill Creek. And in about 10 minutes, we were a different life expectancy of 10 years. Okay. And that's because if you go to West Mill Creek, they don't have the transportation choices. They don't have the tree canopies. They don't have the access to transit. They don't have the trails. They don't have a lot of things. Okay. But my neighborhood does. And so you can just see that how important it is that we hit all of those social determinants of health. Okay, this is a program that I run called TravelWise, and recently we've adopted these outcomes as kind of our driver. And you can see the top one's better health. Air quality, of course, has been an issue forever in Utah. It's never going to not be an issue because of where we live, the cave bowl we're in. But it's very important that we continue to make progress on reducing emissions. Active transportation would be a part of that. We're able to have the conversation about mental health. COVID helped us, unfortunately, but it showed the different isolation things that are going on. And so as we look at, we're statewide, Utah, and you look at rural Utah, and you're seeing the isolation and associated with depression, and part of that's because they have no transportation choices. And so we're really taking a hard look at that. Social connection, same thing, you know, we got to make sure that people have access to green space and parkways and recreation, you know, we got to have those social connections. Enhancing transportation equity, big deal. Expanding opportunities for all is the phrase that Utah is using these days. Improving access to opportunities. You know, we need to connect things. We need to make them safe. We need to make them convenient. We need to make them efficient. So all of those is what TravelWise program is trying to do. And ultimately, you need to work on changing travel behavior because, you know, I like my car. I don't love it, but I use it all the time. I'm disabled. It's difficult if I don't have my car. Okay, but sometimes it's nice to be able to hop on a transit, and it's, you know, it's doable. So we just got to continue to work on options and change travel behavior. Okay, this is a handout that you guys will all get when you're here. Okay, and oh, you already have it. Okay, yeah, okay, cool. Anyway, so UDOT and then with Sarah, we created a couple of flyers, and this one that I handed out is for a tool for transportation planning, and it kind of gives a summary of what Sarah's talked about, what I've talked about, and the different things that we can use it for. Okay, and so we also have one that's more public interface, is a little bit simpler, and so what we really hope to do, you know, by being here today, and Sarah and I continue to do presentations. She does way more than I do, but we want to get that marriage with transportation in there, and we want to understand what we can work on with communities. And so we're hoping that everyone, you know, grabs a hold of this, listens to what we said today, and dives into that Healthy Place Index and sees where their problems are and sees the opportunities that we might be able to work together. I'm volunteering TravelWise. You know, my program is decent size. I have resources, and we continue to explore opportunities with communities. And so anyone here in this room can contact me, and we'll look at what you're talking about and see if we can help. I don't even know what this slide is, sorry. Okay. Oh, yeah. It's the other flyer, that's why, okay. The other flyer that you don't have, I'm sorry, I didn't bring it, it's the other flyer, but it's kind of the same. You guys got the most detailed one of it, okay. And so anyway, that's all I have, and I just wanted to open it up for more questions, comments, and then really opportunities. And again, I'm 100% serious that you guys can contact me at any time. I'll put up I think I have our contact information right here, yeah, and so contact us. But any thoughts that you guys have, I know it's brand new to a lot of you, you've just seen it, but we're hoping to start building momentum though people are getting familiar with this.
And we'll also make sure that we share the contact information and any links that were shared, so that you can, you know, if you have questions that you think of afterwards, or when you're reviewing it, any of the links that we send, you can reach out to them. But yeah, any
Can I
questions
just add
right
one
now?
thing, Lauren, I would just say, yeah, if you haven't, on the flyers, the map, web address, you can go there, just play around with it. We just always tell people you're not going to break anything. So just pull up different indicators, look at different communities, look where you live, see, does this make sense for where you live? Look where you work. Does this make sense for where you work? Try looking at the score. You can do comparisons. You can rank by score. You can do side-by-side maps. So I would say get in there and play with it. And then if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. We can set up like a video call where we walk through it together. We've done a lot of trainings where we walk through case studies with different groups to say, like, here's what you might do in your work. Here's how you can use the tool. I would also say, I don't know like how everyone's work, what your responsibilities are, but if you have anything related to grant writing, it's been a really useful tool for grant writing because it's a lot of data in one place. So you can pull that up together if you're trying to, you know, show what a community looks like. So I would recommend just getting in and trying it and then reaching out with questions. Also, and I'll make sure you have it to send out, but our DHHS website, that is the landing page for the map, has a lot of frequently asked questions. There's like 10 maybe 3 to 4 minute tutorial videos that you can walk through different ways of using the map. There's the technical report that I mentioned. So that's also a great place to just spend a little bit of time and get in there and learn. We've had feedback that it's overwhelming because there's so much there, and I totally get that, but just realize that you don't have to look at all of it. You can just look at what's interesting to you and what makes sense to you, and then we're there to help answer questions along the way if you need it.
And a quick question, how often do you see yourselves updating the data? Because there's definitely a lot, and I'm sure that'd be very tedious to do.
Yes, Angela and I were just talking about this. This is always the question. So we actually are starting, so it just launched last October, but we're starting data updates now. They're actually being updated starting now, but it's kind of a rolling process for a couple of reasons. One is some of the indicators, there is no new data from when we launched, essentially a year ago. So it depends on when the data are available, but it also depends on funding, quite frankly, because we have to pay for each indicator that gets updated. So we have a plan for the funding we have currently available and which things will be updated when, but it's on a rolling basis. When you go into the map, you can, as you click each indicator, it will tell you the years of data for that particular indicator and the source. So it varies some. There's lots of different sources and lots of different years. And it was all publicly available data prior to the map. Nothing is new. It's just, all put together in one spot.
Any other questions? Anyone online?
I have a quick question, and maybe this is just because I think people might be interested. Could you talk a little bit about how the percentages and the weights were determined?
I will try. Usually on my team, I have a epidemiologist who helps me with these types of questions. So the weighting was determined by association with life expectancy. So each of the 8 categories has a different weight, and then the indicators within that category are equally distributed. So like housing has 5 and healthcare access only has 1, but they make up the total weight of that domain. So for transportation, those 2 indicators account for 16% of the total score. This will, as we update indicators, the weights may change. So if once we update all of these indicators in the score, the association with life expectancy will be rerun, and we'll see if there's some drastic change. Maybe there's some drastic COVID-related change that made a difference, and then the weights would be shifted accordingly.
I have a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that real quick. By the way, Megan Waters, sorry about that. I figured it out. I was like, okay, Megan Waters says that. Anyway, when we were doing this, we wanted to have about 6 or 8 transportation indicators to count to the score, and they weren't able to do that with the budget we had and the changes that were being made. But so if you look at the decision support layers, there's crash data up there, and there's access to parks, there's all kinds of things that we wanted, but we couldn't get in there. And so, I'll make up a number. 5 years from now, we'll have a lot more things in there. Okay. And so we'll continue to utilize it better and get more details to it.
So my question is, I'm wondering, I know this is all new. Are there policies moving forward based on this data?
Yes, and I will say, so we have the policy guides that are associated, so there's 8 guides that are associated with each of these 8 domains, and then there's a chapter or something associated with each indicator. So there are a number of, I think it's 350 policies that are evidence-based within the policy guides. As the state agency, we don't advocate for one over the other. That's up for a local community to decide what works best for them in their local community. We actually, after this legislative session, have to go in and revise the policy guide because there are policies that passed in this past legislative session. Because it's so broad. So like full day kindergarten, for example, is a policy in the policy guides as a way to support education. And so full day kindergarten passed this legislative session. So we get to go in there and update the policy guide to say that that's a policy within our state. So yes, there are a number of policies specific to transportation. We did have UDOT, UTA, WFRC, and others review that, make sure it felt right for Utah, make sure those are priorities for Utah, and make sure we had appropriate links and resources because they're the experts in those areas. So I would also say go and explore the policy guides. There's a lot of great information in there.
Hi, I'm wondering if this is going to be translated into other languages other than English.
Yeah, that's a great question. We had those discussions early on, and it's honestly a limitation of funding at this point. So as we can, make updates and changes, including translation, and have funding available to do that, we would like to be able to do that.
The minimum, like Spanish, would that be the next one?
Would Spanish, I'm sorry, can you, would
be
Spanish be the next one?
Yeah.
I would say that would, I don't know, that would be up to our agency to decide what would be the most, I would assume maybe they'd use some website analytics and partner input to decide which languages would be most appropriate to translate to and the order of them. But that's a big, that will take significantly more funding than we currently have for this project. Yeah. That's a great question. Yeah.
I'm going to tag on that. Is there somebody from your agency that could actually do a presentation in Spanish on this?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, we can figure that out for sure. Yeah. It's not me, but yeah, we can get someone. Yeah. Yeah, reach out. Send me a message. We'd be happy to do that.
Hey, Sarah, I had a
With the note that the materials are all English and the map is English. So
I had a quick question. You talked a little bit about the grant writing and could you expand on how maybe an individual could use some of this resources aside from the policy guides and maybe expand on what you've heard from feedback in the community?
yeah, I'd be happy to. I don't know, Nikki, if it's easy for you to pull up the map on your screen because that might help. So from our agency, our main partners are the local health department. So wherever your jurisdiction is, there's a local health department, typically county, but they are trained in this tool. They're a great resource. I would say reach out to them. And obviously they and we do a lot of grant writing. And one of the things that we found beneficial is, so if you're trying to determine, let's say you have you're applying for a specific active transportation related grant and it needs to meet some sort of specific criteria about where the grant can be applied, the geographic area. So you can use the map to, yeah, great. And there's the go to the Utah HPI map. You can use the map to rank areas. So you could say I work in Utah County or Salt Lake County, and I'm interested in looking in Salt Lake County by census tract. What are the areas with the highest index score and lowest index score? And then you could set parameters. For us, a lot of times a grant might be available to be used in communities with a specific per capita income. So I could say, I only want to see communities where the per capita income is under $30,000 or something like that. And that could help me in a grant application so I can identify the communities where the grant strategies would be implemented. But it also could help you, at least from our perspective, a lot of the grants we write, you have to provide evidence of why you're eligible for that grant. And so we can say here's the diabetes rate, here's the insured population rate, here's the per capita income, and this, you can just find it all here, which makes it a lot easier. And then you can separate that by geography. So does that help for grant writing? You can also do pooling. This is you could do in the training videos, or we could train you on this, where you might say, I work in, this is displayed in census tract, but you might say, well, it's really these 10 census tracts I'm interested in. And you can do a feature where you click all 10, it pulls them all together, and then compiles the data for that. So you would know what's the per capita income for these combined 10 census tracts, what's the bike lane access average for these combined 10 census tracts, that sort of thing. So that's a really helpful tool as well. And under where Nikki just changed it to zip code, there's a bunch of different geographies there. You can look by school districts, you can look by legislative districts, county, health department districts. So whatever kind of geography you're most used to working in, you can adjust in these specific dropdowns. Great questions. Any others? Yeah.
Will you use a mic, please? We have people online. Sorry, thank you.
It's loud enough to carry everywhere. Does it break down by associations of governments?
No, it does not. But you could pool. So if it matched other boundaries, you could pool by other boundaries, yeah. But that's the type of thing as we do updates. If you were using this a lot and felt like, oh, if I only had X feature, then reach out and we can talk about that and see, like, is that a feature we could add if it's helpful to use the tool? Just getting like a live demonstration here. That's awesome. Any other questions? Please feel free to reach out as you look at it more and have questions, and we're happy to come do, as I said, we could do like brief kind of intro, but we've also done more in-depth like case study walkthroughs, like where we've done some like 2 hours where we just sit down and we work through the map together. We come up with case studies and see how it works best for you. We're happy to do whatever works best for you and your agency.
Great, thank you. And like I mentioned before, I'll make sure that you have all their contact info and we'll send that in our follow-up email. All right, moving on to the next item, which is the future of the advisory committee. So at the last meeting, I brought kind of an update of one-on-one meetings that we had done with the committee members that we were able to set up a one-on-one meeting with. And just as a refresher, some of the things that we heard were kind of an interest in having additional meetings so that we could meet more frequently. We wanted to start off quarterly just because we didn't want to take too much of your time. We understand that, a lot of people are very stretched thin, but we've found, and this seemed to be the general consensus in our one-on-ones, that we'd like to meet more often and make sure that we're continuing that line of communication. And then we'll be increasing the meetings to 6 meetings a year while also continuing the special session meetings that we had. We've had 2 of those. We hope to continue to have more, and we will as projects continue. They're always ongoing and throughout our areas. We've also, you should have all seen an email asking if you were interested in continuing on as a committee member. We know that you only signed up for 1 year, so that's all you're obligated to do. But we wanted to kind of extend that invite because we've had to spend so much of our first few meetings kind of laying that groundwork of what we do. And we want to make sure that we're just continuing on with the kind of building those relationships with you all. So if you have any questions about that, like definitely reach out to us. If you haven't seen that email, let us know and we'll make sure that that gets resent to you or forwarded, or if we had anything wrong, we'll make sure it gets to your inbox. But following that, we just kind of wanted to have an open discussion about what you'd like to see in the coming year for those that are interested. And even if you're not able to continue on in the next year, what you'd like to see with this community advisory committee. Any thoughts, questions, concerns? Anyone online? Is this thing on?
This is Tara. I always have a comment. I think it would be really helpful, even if we didn't meet in person, that we could meet by Zoom and just be educated, along the road, because it's a lot of information.
Sorry. So we do have the option to meet hybrid. Do you mean just like additional opportunities?
Well, you said quarterly and then 6 times a year. But if we were meeting quarterly in person and the other one's online, I think would be great.
Oh yeah, I mean, we can definitely work out if we want to do hybrid, have ones that are just virtual. We want to make sure that this committee is working for you all. So yeah, we can definitely look at that setup.
I'm just thinking too, like maybe a meeting that you guys have internally where that's explaining something that would be beneficial for us to be able to have access to. And we could just look at it at our own pace.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts?
Every time. I think one of my things is a lot of information has been given to us to give back to our communities that are impacting our communities. And not a lot of times do I feel like the communities have a lot of say. And so I'd like to be able to also give my community's input more often, I guess, or like, hey, can you give this to your community? And also next time, bring their input, I guess. Because I oftentimes give the information to my community, but I do not enjoy just being like, hey, I'm giving this to you. And that's it. And that's all, without hearing their feedback. And if I do get their feedback, I would like somewhere to take it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the things that I've seen about this committee is having that opportunity for that back and forth. And that's what I envision for this community advisory committee, is to be able to set that stage so we can have that back and forth so that we're able to hear that feedback. And I know, and I've said it before, but it was kind of unfortunate the timing of this committee getting started and where we were at with so many of our plans and not being plugged in and kind of having that late start in understanding of what those plans were. And this next, the next couple of rounds, you'll be plugged in a lot sooner. And so you'll have a better base knowledge of what we're looking at and what it actually means. And so we'll kind of bring you along with those processes throughout the next couple of years. And so I think we'll be able to see a lot more of that. That's my hope, but that's good feedback.
And I think that's my vision and hope as well. Like, I'm really excited to continue because I think we all do see the same vision.
Yep. Anyone else? Any other thoughts? Things that worked well, things that didn't work well.
The membership number capped, or is there capacity to accommodate some additional seats?
Yes, that is something that I didn't bring up that I meant to. Yeah, so we're looking at capping it at about 20 members. So we're not at that right now. And we're anticipating putting out the application again that you all filled out. I think at the end of this month, we'll put it out, or maybe it'll be out for July. I can't remember exact. We are just starting to nail that down. Once we kind of hear back final numbers from the current committee members, then we'll put that application out and kind of review those applicants. And yeah, we're hoping to cap it at 20, but we're increasing the number of meetings, but we're still going to be compensating for those additional meetings. So those won't be, the special sessions will still be volunteer only just because they'll be so last minute or more last minute than these. But yeah, they'll still be compensated the exact same way. And yeah, it would be nice if, maybe once we get that application up and out, to maybe have you all disperse to people that you might think would be suited to be on this committee and helpful and bring a good voice.
When will the additional meeting start?
So we're looking at having our next meeting be in August. And so we're working to lock that date down as soon as possible, and then we'll get that on the calendars as soon as we have that. Yeah. And it'll be kind of similar style. There will be a hybrid option, of course. And we're also looking at, we've had all of them at WFRC, but we're looking at potentially having them in other places as available. So we'll work with you all. If maybe there's a community center or something along those lines that we might open up the meeting space.
Yeah, to add to that, we would be happy to have it in other spaces. I think the benefit of having it here is because of the technology familiarity, but we also have good access to transit. You can always use, we can always validate your parking and give you a transit pass if you choose to take that in. But like Lauren said, we've talked about having more of like field trips where it's not necessarily just like all meeting in an office, but going out and actually seeing, the impacts of a life expectancy, like out in the real world, and also looking at transportation facilities. And so there's, I think, opportunities to kind of broaden what we've done as a group. So it's like relevant to and accommodating to how we all learn together.
Yeah, that was a good point. That was something that we wanted to do this round. Just kind of ran out of time and with 4 meetings and stuff, but kind of doing field tours of, seeing the facilities and firsthand. I know that that was something for me as a transportation planner, actually going to where the bus routes were, looking at the actual stops, what facilities were available to transit users was really helpful and beneficial to my transit planning knowledge. So I think that'd be something we'd want to do, is actually get out in the field and look at some of the things we're talking about.
I think that's like very important. That's what I'd like to see, and also communicate that back to our community.
Yeah, thank you. Any other thoughts? Anyone online? Quiet bunch.
Is there an opportunity, Lauren, to maybe suggest topics among the committee members to bring to future meetings?
Yes, great point. Thank you. That was also one of the things we wanted with the adding on more meetings. Is we were very heavy with creating the agenda items at the beginning, and we want to make sure that we're having kind of a equal back and forth where you all can bring topics and have agenda items, and there will be that space in future meetings. So that's definitely, think about that, and hopefully we'll see some of your items soon.
Backing on what Sarah just said about providing feedback that community members give to us about community and all that. Yes, about the feedback, are you guys gonna create a form? Is it gonna be a Word document that we can submit the feedback to, or during the meetings, can we, like, what's the best way to give you all the feedback that our community members are saying?
It's a really, really great point. I think it'll depend on what exactly it is, because there will be some, I guess, for the regional transportation plan, there's like an official public comment period where there will be links to submit a comment and things like that, and we'll ask for your name and contact info, so that there will be certain projects and things that will kind of have that set up. But then, we should figure out how, if it's just more of like an informal discussion or feedback, how we want to, because we want to keep track of that. It's nice, hearing it in passing, but we want to be able to actually keep track of it, and then we can see how we're handling it and kind of keep those kind of metrics. So that's a really good point, and we'll come up with something and work with you on kind of the best way to do that.
Yeah, and I want to just be very aware of some of the communities we're serving may or may not have access to internet and those resources. And so also, how are we able to give those comments back? And so sometimes this public forum might be the best way to do so.
Yeah, and we do also have, in our, for another example of our regional transportation plan, we did receive comments handwritten. So we do have other avenues to do that, and we can make sure that all of those avenues for certain plans and studies and things like that, if there are, that we'll have that information out and they can kind of do it the best way for them. But yeah, that's good to know. Thank you.
So how can we start having input more upstream on plans?
Sorry, more input upstream?
Meaning before the plans come out, we always tend to react to them.
Yeah.
Opposed to having input on the plan itself.
Yeah, well, and that's I think the intention of this was because in recent years, there was there's some federal requirements of public outreach that you have to do, but it's pretty low, and I don't think it should be the ceiling. And so that's why we've kind of tried to create this, so we could have that back and forth and plug you in earlier and bring you along in the process, instead of just being like, hey, here it is. Like, what are your thoughts? You have to digest all of this information and get us a comment back in 30 days. So we're hoping to kind of equip everyone on this committee with the knowledge of what these plans are and how they work, and what impacts they might have on communities, and plug you in earlier. And that's kind of our hope. I've been in this role for almost 4 years. And so this is that was the first plan that I did that just got adopted. And so this next one, it'll be kind of learning with how we can plug you in earlier. and make sure that,
And I think that this process that's going on right now is sort of iterative of like, let's keep doing better and getting people involved earlier on. And a lot of these plans are looking out 30 years. So, and they're updated and change every 4 years. So because it says that this is going to happen in maybe 2050 right now, that could completely change in the next 4 or 8 years or whatever it is. And just to add the other plug on that, since the RTP or the MPOs are finishing up their long-range plans, WFRC and MAG, but UTA is still going to be coming out with our companion plan that goes along with that. And we'll be putting that out for comment at the end, starting at the end of the month. And so we'll have an open period and we'll share out ways to provide comment with this entire group. So
I would just add though to please let us, we're learning how to do that, to plug people in earlier. It can be really technical up front. And so if you have suggestions about how to do that and make that digestible, right? I think we're always looking for ways to make that a little bit more accessible for the community too. So we know we're not doing it ideally right now. And so as you guys have suggestions too about, are there things you've seen work really well where there was that community involvement without overburdening community members in, being on a planning team, right? Like there's a balance there. So if you have suggestions too, I think we're curious about that, how to do that better.
yeah, definitely. And we had, I think it was our second meeting where we had kind of that discussion on new avenues for outreach. And so we heard a lot from that. And at that point in our planning process, things were pretty much done, but we still have all of that. And we're looking for ways to implement that in kind of our next round of our plans. And then also studies and other things that will pop up in the meantime that are kind of side quests almost. And Alex and Megan had given a presentation on their long-range transit plan. And so we'll make sure that, I believe we had sent out information on that, but we'll make sure that when that goes out, that we'll kind of reshare that information so you have that and can review it as well again. And also this won't be the only time to provide feedback. We want this to kind of be an ongoing thing and make sure that we're checking in, and we'll continue to do the one-on-ones and just make sure that you all are getting out of this what you intend to, and make sure that it's working. And if something's not working, then we'll chat about it and figure a way forward. But yeah, I'm just really grateful for you all and your time and your expertise and your voice. So thank you. Any other thoughts, or I don't want to belabor this. Anyone online? Anyone out there?
I think I mentioned once before, have you put together a map that kind of shows like some things occur every few years or at the same time every year? Maybe just to give some of the community groups more of an idea of when things recur.
Right. Yeah. I don't think we have, no, but that is a really, really great idea. I think that would be helpful to have that visual, because yeah, there are things that get updated every 4 years and that's the process. But then there's studies that pop up, and we can kind of lay out what those might look like, and different programs that are on a yearly basis and other things like that. So that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Jay, and maybe something that we can spend time working on together as a group this next year, because understanding roles, like what WFRC does, that's different, and maybe MAG2 and their role, that's different from UDOT and UTA, as well as the cities. Like, how does your feedback and your comments like have an impact? Because maybe, there's simultaneous processes that happen often, and it can be very complicated. And so that we are communicating it well to each other, and you can be good stewards when you're communicating it more broadly to your community. So I think that's also part of the role of this group, is to how we can better share that information to you all, so that we can get feedback that is meaningful and can make those changes moving forward.
All right. And like I said, the feedback will always be an ongoing process. If you think of anything at any point, you can email us at any time or call us. But we'll move on from that now. And the last item that we had was just kind of an open discussion or member announcements. So if you have anything that you want to share, any upcoming events, now you have the floor. And our partners.
Yeah, Jay, I know you had brought up the long range plan. I don't know if you want to.
I'm always reluctant whether or not a more metropolitan group is interested in the long range plan. UDOT's long range plan primarily addresses the rural areas, so outside the metropolitan planning organization like Wasatch Front. But we have a public notice that's going to go out shortly. It's planned to go out June 23rd through the July 25th. So about 30 plus days, a couple more days than 30 days for comment. And it's a little tricky because it includes the regions, the UDOT regions. There are 4 UDOT regions, and projects that came to that group and to the long range plan to some degree have already been had public input into them. And so this new plan that's coming forward will be open for comment for the 30 days and has also had other public input that kind of contributed to it from around the state. So just to give you maybe a broader context. So what we asked for is, are there any projects that you would see? And it's made up of a relatively sophisticated, part of it's a relatively sophisticated tool that's a map that you can, look around the state, move the map around, look at areas you're familiar with, and look at all the projects and see whether you think there's some improvement that could be made, or it should have been longer, or it should have not existed at all. But you can kind of see what's going on, and that's going to happen in just a week and a half or so.
And you can find it just like udot.gov or specific place you have to go to.
Trying to think.
You can get us that link and we'll share out
that probably
with
does,
some substantive information as well, kind of reminding what it is and what you're being asked to do.
It might be an interesting test, because if some of your groups don't get that notice, like we're working with a consulting group and they have a network as well as UDOT's network and all of our partner networks. And so if your group doesn't get notice, you could come to one of us and say, my group didn't get a notice about this, and we'll fix that.
Good note. We'll also include that in the follow-up email.
Our affordable housing conference is at the end of August, 28th, 29th, and 30th. It's going to be in Midway. And I'll make sure I get you information so you can send it out. Thanks.
The fall Utah APA, the American Planning Association, the fall Utah conference will be in Ogden, September 28th and 29th.
Have we sent out an email about the Guiding Our Growth survey that's currently ongoing?
I don't think so, but that's a good note. Yeah. I'll check first to make sure that we hadn't done it, but I think a follow-up anyways, if we had, will be great. But yeah, that's a good note. We'll include that in our follow-up as well.
Our Generation Next program, so building our business professionals, we do a mixer social. It's kind of fun. It's a mixer with a twist. It's called Mix Up. We will be doing that in July. We don't have like a set date, but I will make sure our team sets a date tomorrow and so that we can send it out. we definitely need just different business partners from everywhere and anywhere. And I don't think we have anyone in transportation who comes very often. The cool thing about our summer mix-up is that we have students from HBCUs in Utah who come to it. So that's also a really cool like opportunity. So yeah, we'd love to have y'all there.
Yeah, definitely send us that information when you have it, because that sounds awesome.
Does everybody know what guiding our growth is? So the governor's office of planning and budget, I think that's what it's still called, has opened up a large interactive survey tool that's available for a period of time. And it includes various scenarios and kind of educational material that you can look at, which is directly related to growth impacts and how decision-making that Utah should consider as we move forward, trying to sustain our growth in a healthy way and sustain our communities so that this growth doesn't have the negative impacts we're all starting to see. And so I'd encourage everybody to seek that out and be heard. And look for that link that Lauren's going to send you.
I just want to announce that next week, the June 16 and 17 is World Refugee Day. And so it's going to be at Big Cottonwood Regional Park. And so people are going to have different foods, dances, and just showing off their culture and why they're here in the US. And so it's pretty cool. The next Friday from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. and next Saturday, the 17th from 11 to 4. I can send over the flyer.
Yeah, please do. That sounds great.
Also, I just remembered the Greater Northwest Passenger Rail Summit will be in Boise, July 19th and 20th. For anyone who's interested in learning more about the initiatives to expand passenger rail throughout the region.
Great, thanks.
We had a comment from Leah online. I'll just go ahead and read it. Promise Partnership Utah is convening a statewide parent coalition, which will be focusing on equity and education for the time being, but will eventually be taking on other equity issues in communities around the state. We've heard from a few groups that transportation equity and access is something that they want to learn more about down the road. If you want to know more about what we're doing in the short term, I'm happy to pass along more info. And I don't know, Leah, if you're available to speak a little bit more about that, but that sounds really great. Oh, it looks like you've been muted.
Yeah, so the group, like I said in the chat, is going to focus more on equity and education for the time being. But there are a lot of like issues that intersect with different equity topics that parents and families and community members have surfaced to us. And one of those has been like transportation equity, development, and housing. So if you want to know more about what we're doing in the short term, even though it's going to be focused on education equity, I'm happy to pass along more info. Or if you're interested in joining or know a parent or a community member who might be interested, I can pass along our interest form and they can sign up.
Awesome, thank you. And then does everyone do the committee members receive the WFRC newsletter? Do you? Okay, great. I just want to make sure we've signed you all up for that. And that has a lot of information. We send it once a month. We post all the information on the regional transportation plan, other partner studies like the long range transit plan, guiding our growth surveys. So we continually share information on there, and then you're more than welcome to share anything that is relevant to transportation with us too. And sometimes we'll share that out to our listserv. So if anything comes up, you're more than welcome to pass it along. Rosie manages that. So yeah.
Our University Neighborhood Partners kickoff for Partners in the Park starts next Wednesday at Jordan Park. And it's free activities, free food. So from 6 to 8, and I will send you out the flyer.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, lots of great upcoming stuff. Thank you for sharing. We'll make sure to get all of that in the email so that you all have access to that. All right, the last announcement that I want to make is that this will be Nikki's last meeting with us. As she is leaving us for Alaska. But Nikki was very, very helpful and important in starting this committee. So we wish her well and we will miss her. And that's all we have. Any last comments, questions? If not, we'll let you get home. Hopefully it's not raining as much. All right, thank you all. We'll grab all of that. Yeah, thank you.